Welcome to the Bunge Safety Orientation for Contractors. The purpose of this presentation is to outline safety requirements while working at Bunge facilities. Management at Bunge is committed to a safety program that provides safe work environments for everyone at all of our facilities. An important part of the safety program is the safety orientation presented to all contractors and their employees. If you have not received a Bunge Contractor Safety Orientation during the past year, you must do so prior to beginning work at a Bunge facility. If you have not been to this Bunge location before, you must become aware of the local emergency evacuation alarm, routes, and assembly areas and other plant-specific requirements for the area where you may work. The contractor and its employees must comply with all rules and regulations, codes, and laws that are applicable to the work being performed. The contractor must ensure compliance and assure that safe procedures and practices are utilized at all times. If you're observed working unsafely, your employer will be advised, and depending on the infraction, you may be removed from the premises. The most important safety requirement is a safe worker. It is Bunge's objective to provide you with information that will help you work safely at a Bunge facility. It is your responsibility to maintain conduct that is suitable and appropriate. Inappropriate conduct is a cause for immediate dismissal from the premises. If you have any questions or need any clarification, please contact your supervisor. A Bunge representative will provide additional information if needed to respond to those questions. The Bunge Safety Handbook for Contractors is intended to help you perform your job safely at Bunge North America facilities. The information in this orientation program is explained in more detail in the handbook. Refer to it if you have any questions about proper procedures. In addition to hazards typically encountered in construction and contracting activities, our locations may present special hazards that you are not familiar with. This section will examine these hazards. You should always be aware of the circumstances that apply to the work you're performing. If you have any questions about the applicable conditions or you suspect that the conditions may have changed, you should stop what you're doing and notify your supervisor before proceeding. Grain dust hazards are given utmost consideration at Bunge facilities. Grain dust and bulk powdered products can be explosive if ignition sources exist and dust concentrations are sufficient. Hot work and no smoking rules are strictly enforced. If equipment is operating improperly, for example a bearing is running hot, report it to Bunge immediately. Heavy airborne dust concentration and rapid dust accumulation should also be reported to Bunge. All equipment used or installed in grain handling areas must be suitable for the area. Grain and bulk powdered materials can also be a suffocation hazard if you are entrapped in them. Proper grain entry and work practices are essential to avoid such hazards. Hexane, the solvent used in oilseed processing, is volatile and explosive. It is important to control all ignition sources where hexane may be present. Hydrogen is used in the vegetable oil refining process. It is highly flammable and can be explosive. It may be present as a gas or liquid. Nitrogen is used in our storage tanks at edible oil refineries. Nitrogen is always present in the atmosphere. However, pure nitrogen displaces oxygen and can incapacitate you quickly and result in death. Ammonia is used at facilities where large amounts of refrigeration capacity are required. Direct contact with ammonia is very hazardous. Avoid ammonia-laden atmospheres if you're required to work around equipment containing ammonia. Now let's examine some general safety rules that apply at all Bunge facilities. Smoking is allowed only in designated smoking areas. Carrying smoking materials such as cigarettes, cigars, matches, lighters, and smokeless tobacco inside grain elevators, manufacturing, processing, or other restricted areas is prohibited. Clothing must be safe and suitable for the work or activity you are performing. You must wear long pants, shirts with sleeves, and appropriate work shoes. Cotton or cotton blend clothing must be worn in solvent extraction areas where combustible solvents are present. At Bunge, the plant manager or designated individual monitors the progress of the contractor activities. Additionally, Bunge may have a local safety designee. The safety designee is Bunge's representative whose role is to coordinate work activities with your company's designated project supervisor, foreman, or person in charge. While on the job, keep your work areas cleaned and organized to help avoid injury or fire hazards. Also, keep all walkways, exitways, or access roads clear. Make sure all materials, tools, and equipment are blocked, chalked, or stacked in stable positions. Comply with local rules regarding food and beverages in the work area. You must use appropriate barricades around potential hazards created by excavations, holes, floor openings, unguarded machinery, and under overhead activities that may pose a hazard, such as welding or hoisting. You must equip barricades with a flashing light where the hazard may not be visible at night. You must label and secure floor covers so that they do not pose a trip hazard. All excavation work must be approved by a Bunge representative in advance. Excavation and trenches deeper than 4 feet or 1.22 meters must be properly shored or sloped to prevent entrapment and provide a safe means of escape. Possession of firearms, ammunition, explosives, or weapons is prohibited on Bunge property. You must sign in and out of Bunge property daily at the designated location. You must use approved access routes to your work areas. You are not allowed in other areas of a Bunge facility. Possessing, using, or being under the influence of drugs or alcohol on Bunge property is prohibited and will result in your dismissal from the premises. You may be subject to drug testing by your contractor employer. Equipment or other hazards should not be left unattended unless properly locked out, guarded, or barricaded from access. All equipment guards and safety devices are to be reinstalled immediately following any construction or maintenance work. Hot fluids such as water, steam, and product are found in many processing areas of the facility. Use extreme care in all processing areas to avoid contact with lines or equipment that may contain hot fluids. Be careful when disconnecting any hose or pipe, as residual fluid may exist. If your work could potentially expose you to rail operations, you should request that special rail considerations be explained to you. If you must travel through rail handling areas, do not cross between cars which are positioned less than 10 feet or 3 meters apart. When working on or near rail tracks, the blue flag and derail device must be utilized. You are not permitted to use belt man lifts unless you are authorized and trained in their use. Do not carry any tools or equipment in your hands while riding a man lift. Only small hand tools fitting entirely within a pocket, tool pouch, or specially designed holster attached to a belt may be carried on a man lift. Belt man lifts are not to be used in the event of an emergency evacuation. Do not use elevators during emergency evacuation. Additionally, observe load limits for passenger and freight elevators. Do not use compressed air for cleaning off a person's clothing or body. Instead, use a brush. You must notify your supervisor immediately if for any reason, including any mental or physical condition or drug use, you are unable to perform your currently assigned duties or if your condition constitutes a direct threat to your safety or that of others. Use of temporary power, water, or steam must be from approved locations and appropriately installed to protect personnel from exposure to hazardous energy. Now let's look at safety as it relates to emergency action and injuries at Bunge. You are expected to notify Bunge in the event of an emergency and to follow local procedures during evacuations and emergency action. Use local communication systems or seek Bunge's assistance on how to report an emergency situation. Remain at the appropriate assembly points until advised by Bunge. Report all injuries to your supervisor immediately. Special procedures may need to be followed to clean up blood resulting from an injury. Your employer must report all injuries to Bunge. Know where fire extinguishers are located in your work area and how to operate them. Be sure to have a fire extinguisher immediately available for any hot work. Do not block or obstruct access to fire protection equipment. Use of fire extinguishers or hoses should be reported immediately to Bunge. Use of fire hydrants and hoses for cleaning or any other use other than firefighting must be approved by Bunge. Take care when working around sprinkler systems to avoid activating and/or disabling these systems. Do not block facility fire lanes. Personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment is to be used to prevent injuries. It is your responsibility to assure that the proper PPE is supplied and utilized for the task being performed. In addition to PPE required by the contractor, contractor's employees working at Bunge facilities must wear hard hats. Safety glasses must be worn in construction areas. Shaded lenses are not permitted indoors unless required by the task. When working at heights over 4 feet or 1.22 meters, where you are exposed to a potential fall, you are required to wear fall protection equipment. If you're working over or next to open water, life vests are required. Now let's look at safety as it relates to chemical handling. Flammable and chemical products should be stored in properly labeled and approved containers and safety cans. Use of chemicals should be in accordance with the label instructions. Flammable liquids must be stored and used in safe areas away from any potential ignition source. All containers and vessels of flammable liquids must be bonded and grounded during transfer operations. Bunge may designate specific areas where flammable and chemical products need to be stored. Material Safety Data Sheets, or MSDSs, are available for chemical products Bunge uses. Review these sheets before working around specific chemicals. Before bringing any other chemical on site, your employer must provide MSDSs for the products to Bunge. Some activities require a permit before that work can be carried out. Since hot work is a major hazard and a potential ignition source in many of our operations, Bunge requires that special permits be obtained from management before performing welding, cutting, and hot work in all areas except for designated shop or construction areas. All combustibles must be 50 feet or 15 meters away from hot work operations or protected with a non-combustible covering. A fully charged contractor-supplied fire extinguisher must be within 25 feet or 8 meters of the work area. Permits are to be posted at the hot work site. All individuals involved in hot work must be listed on the permit. Access to confined spaces and grain storage spaces require an entry permit. You are to consult Bunge before you enter confined spaces and grain storage spaces. Bunge will issue permits and advise the contractor of known hazards. You must ensure that safe entry conditions are maintained throughout the entry. Inform Bunge of any problems encountered during the entry. Only trained and qualified workers may enter confined or grain storage spaces. Use of electric and pneumatic tools, cleaning with compressed air, which may create a dust explosion hazard, and thawing product lines may require a permit depending on the application and the area. Consult with Bunge prior to using this equipment or performing these activities. Let's take a look at safety as it pertains to various equipment. All tools and equipment must be appropriate for the task, be in good condition, and be used safely. Use of Bunge tools and equipment must be authorized in advance by Bunge. Prior to performing work, lockout and tag or equivalent isolation is required if your work involves equipment or energies that could harm you if they were operating. All energy sources must be isolated, including electrical, mechanical, gravitational, chemical, hydraulic, pneumatic, radiation, or heat sources. You must contact Bunge to coordinate appropriate isolation of equipment. Most equipment at Bunge facilities is remotely operated and must be locked out, tagged, and tested to ensure the equipment does not operate before work can begin. Only properly trained and qualified personnel may work on electrical equipment. Do not leave energized electrical connections or devices open for potential exposure to others. Tying safety lines or other rigging to electrical conduit and electrical equipment is prohibited. Power tools should be inspected before use and equipped with appropriate guards. Ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCI devices, should be used with electrical tools. Ladders must be constructed and used according to applicable regulations. This includes job-made ladders. Inspect ladders prior to use and remove them from service if they are damaged. Scaffolding is to be secured, fully floored, equipped with handrails and midrails, and provided with appropriate access. Construct, alter, move, and dismantle scaffolds only under the supervision of a scaffold-competent person. To use a scaffold, you must be trained by a scaffold-competent person qualified to recognize the hazards associated with its use. Only qualified individuals may operate cranes. If you're operating or working with the operator of a crane, keep it clear of electrical power lines and other sources of electricity. A clearance of 10 feet or 3 meters is required. Follow safe crane operations and have a valid crane certificate of inspection available for inspection. Do not work or stand under the crane or the load. Explore all other means of access before using a personnel basket. And then only certified personnel baskets in conjunction with fall protection may be used. You must inspect all rigging straps and chokers prior to use. They are to be clean and free of damage. All wire rope is to be free of strain, broken wires, and crimps. Lifting hooks must have an operational safety latch. Do not perform rigging from a structural member unless it has been determined to be safe for the load to be applied. Do not leave an unsecured load unattended, and do not stand beneath a suspended load. In this section, we will discuss some safe work practices to follow when working on powered industrial vehicles. Only qualified persons may operate trucks, cars, forklifts, front-end loaders, tractors, and other specialized industrial vehicles powered by electrical or internal combustible engines. All vehicles are prohibited in controlled areas of processing plants unless Bunge gives authorization. Do not refuel any vehicle while the engine is running. If seatbelts are available, they must be used during vehicle operation. Motor vehicles must be parked in designated areas at Bunge. Passengers as well as operators must wear seatbelts when provided. When permitted to ride in the rear of a pickup, passengers must be seated with arms and legs inside the confines of the truck bed. Forklifts used to hoist personnel must be equipped with a properly secured work platform, and proper fall arrest equipment must be used. If the operator must leave the vehicle unattended, it must have the load down, brakes set, controls in neutral, and be turned off and keys removed from ignition. A gap of 25 feet or more between the fork truck and operator means it is unattended. No passengers are allowed in vehicles unless so designed to accommodate. Vehicles must be equipped with a fire extinguisher. Process safety management. Bunge facilities where hexane, ammonia, propane, or other chemicals are used may have a process safety management program. Contractors and their employees working in plants where PSM applies will receive additional information regarding the process and potential hazards. We haven't covered all situations affecting safety at this facility, and the handbook doesn't cover all situations either. There may be some operations and conditions that may require additional safety practices. The handbook is only intended to supplement the corporate safety procedures and the local plant procedures. The safe completion of the work you're conducting is important. You should always utilize safe work practices and maintain a safe work environment. Your work may have an impact on the safety of others at the facility. It is always important to coordinate your work activities with Bunge. Be aware of the potential safety hazards that are around you and ask questions when you have concerns. Do not do a job unless you feel you can do it safely. We hope safety is an integral part of your job so you can work productively and safely and return home. Safety must become a way of life where we think about it in everything we do. Thanks for joining us, and remember, safety is everyone's responsibility.